Hello and welcome to live coverage of round 8 of the Audi R8 LMS Cup from here at the Shanghai International Circuit. With me as always, Mr. Sean Henchwood. Sean, really only one thing to talk about because Alessio Picariello is on the verge of clinching this title, but he hasn't quite done it yet, has he?
51 points up on advantage to, well, it's Alex Young, isn't it? The reigning champion who's managed to come back through, having had such a good result yesterday. He needs 52 points or better at the close of today's race, and he will be the champion with 2 rounds still remaining. So that is going to be the big discussion, and we will talk numbers right through this 14-lap race as to where he is in the field and what the implications are in the championship. He is starting a little bit further back, but he said yesterday, I'm not thinking about the championship, I still just want to win races, and that's his focus for today for round 8.
That's right, there are others, of course, in the mix. It's not just Alex, it's pretty close after position number 2, after that big gap that Alessio has at the top. So, as you said, it's going to be quite complicated, but we'll try and keep you up to date with all the calculations as the race progresses. Basically, if Alessio wins, well, then that makes it easy for everyone.
Oh, it certainly does, and that's all he wants to do. That would be his 4th win of the year, and he really has been doing a sterling job. He opened up a strong early lead. The first few rounds, he was always at the front of the field, either winning or on the podium. So, had done a brilliant job.
Well, Alessio starts from 3rd position on the grid for today's race. And let's talk about well, in fact, let's go back to yesterday, what happened with this another Belgian, another youngster, even younger than Alessio, Dries van Thor, coming in, and he just had a fantastic performance. Let's take a look at how he did in his debut in the Cup. Pole position and led from start to finish.
Yeah, the one he was looking very closely at, of course, the 18 car, the champion entry of the man who's won 3 of his last 4 starts here at Shanghai. That, of course, was Martin Rump. Martin got hung out a little bit out on the outside of turn 2, tried to go up the inside of Alex Young, contact a little bit under brakes into turn 3. That opened the door a little too for Frankie Chung. You can see the windscreen wipers were going. Conditions were a little slippery. Alex Young, this is as close as anybody got to Dries van Thor in this opening race, round 7. And from there, the young Belgian just drove away. He said the grip levels decreased across the course of the race. It started to get slippery. He didn't have any prior knowledge of the circuit prior to Friday. And then we saw this issue, which was just a battle over real estate between Frankie Chung and Martin Rump, and Martin had no choice on the damp grass but to spin. He didn't have an opportunity there, and frustration for the KCMG run team. So the champion racing driver was forced to the rear of field and had to work his way through. Here is the championship points leader, under fire from Sean Thong and also from Mitch Gilbert. So they were all over him. He needed to make sure he moved as far forward as he could. But again, windscreen wipers on, the track conditions were deteriorating. David Chen from the Tianjia racing team too, that green and red car there further back, you can see him on right of screen, was in this mix too. As further forward, Alessio Picariello had the opportunity to move through and battle onto the tail of his teammate Frankie Chung. And here he was in the end. He forced his way down the inside at turn 14, and he knew his teammate wouldn't close the door. Frankie was looking for a good result. Has never won here in 18 prior starts, but how about Dries van Thor to walk away with a comfortable victory on his debut in the Audi R8 LMS Cup, the WRT-run Castrol Racing team entry.
Well, absolutely, and Dries again in pole position for today's race, but alongside him, Frankie Chung, and what a story it would be for him. A huge crowd here today in Shanghai, all be cheering on that man, Frankie Chung, from position number 2. If he could get that maiden win here, of course, it would keep the championship very much alive going into Zhejiang and the final race weekend.
Well, that's the whole thing, isn't it? I mean, in all reality, Frankie is still in this. I mean, we look at the championship points, 90 points to Alex Young, 89 for Frankie Chung, 87 for Mitch Gilbert, and Sean Thong's only a few points back further. So mathematically, they are still a little in the championship, but it's going to be a big ask to try and keep Alessio Picariello. I think it's just a matter of time, because before he becomes the 2017 champion of the Cup.
Well, that was a shot of, well, some of the front row of the grid, the green car of Dries van Thor. And alongside him, we just saw Frankie Chung, and the cars are just moving into position. The race will be starting in about 10 minutes' time or so. So the excitement is building, and you can see all the action frantically happening on the grid there.
Yeah, drivers, it's a bit of a nervous time for some of them. You can see we were talking just earlier after, well, just minutes ago, we saw round 8 of the GT3 Championship with China GT. And we had Alex Young, Martin Rump and Frankie Chung entered in that field, and they've just stepped out of a hot car after an hour-long race, and they're back into a car for round 8 of the Cup. So we're with Sophie. She is down on the grid with the series manager of the Audi R8 LMS Cup, Mark Turner.
Mark, welcome to the show. And talking about the weather, yesterday is a little bit rainy and today hot and humid. How does it affect the driver's performance today?
Well, it's obviously going to be really hot in the cars for them today. We've got several drivers who were in that race just before us, so they've already done half an hour in the car and they haven't had a lot of time to cool down. So for them it's going to be a super warm day. But yeah, it means that the tyres get hot quicker, the cars are hotter, and just the general grip and balance of the cars changes a lot in these conditions.
Let's hope all the drivers give their best on the track this afternoon to see our round 10 of the Audi R8 LMS Cup coming down. Now is also our time back to the pedal.
Well, Sean, I mean, Mark talked about the hot and humid conditions, and we heard from Dries yesterday, the pollster who won yesterday's race, how it was sort of spitting on and off. The windscreen wipers were on, then they were off, and he was saying some sectors were dry, some were wet at the same time. Like, how difficult is that from a driver's point of view?
Well, we spoke about it yesterday. When it's dry, they know what the grip levels are. And okay, the tyres deteriorate a little bit over the course of a race. Not a lot, but the conditions do change a little bit too. They're aware of that. They have the experience of that. But when it is slippery and wet, it could be damp one corner, it could be dry the next corner. It makes it very, very difficult. A lot of work for them to do. So they will be hoping that it's a pure dry race, this one, and it makes things a little bit more clear. But Dries said that did slow his pace a little bit. He could see Alex Jung coming behind him, but in the end he had enough to cover him and just drive away in the closing stages of the race. And what an impressive drive it was for the 19-year-old.
Absolutely, and he missed almost the entirety of the second free practice session. This, of course, his debut in Asia, not just at this circuit. So he came in, he had one practice session, then pretty much straight into qualifying. But the word around the grid was that he was going to be, well, here he is again.
Pole position for round 8 of the championship. Dries Van Thooys, he's gone back-to-back. Frankie Cheng alongside Alessio Piccarello. Championship points leader will start from position 3. And alongside him, Sean Thong, the 206.448. So pole for a 206 dead for Dries Van Thooys is very impressive. But we've seen laps in the 205 so far this weekend. So certainly the pace is there. Very interesting. So we'll see how Dries Van Thooys goes. He has been a very, very impressive addition to this field. In a recent round in Europe, he was very, very fast. So we're with Martin Rump down there.
Martin, because what happened yesterday, you lose some points on the championship board. But however, started from this position, what is your target today?
My target is to have a finish. First of all, I'm pushing as hard as I can in front of all champion people who are watching me here. I want to bring home a decent result, and let's see what we can do.
With no waiting in your car, hopefully it's a very lucky race for you. And back to your guys.
Well, Martin Rump starts from the 3rd row of the grid in position number 5. We were talking to him yesterday, Sean. He was saying that Shanghai actually suits him typically because it's quite similar to the northern European circuits that he grew up racing around Estonia and the surrounding region, which is a very interesting point. Didn't actually help him yesterday, but if you go back a little bit further, he does have a very impressive record here with 3 wins in just a small number of races here.
Well, interestingly, in 19 starts that the Cup has had here already at Shanghai International Circuit, it started here at the very beginning in season 2012. 5 of those wins have gone to Alex Jung, and 3 of those wins, despite having started only, well, now 7 times, have gone to Martin Rump.
That's right,
so he is
place.
the star driver here in the championship at the moment. Well, he's the coming man. He really is the one that all the drivers are looking at, but certainly Dries Van Thooys has really set the tongues wagging considering how impressive he was. I mean, interestingly too, we pointed it out yesterday during round 7. He arrived for practice on Friday, the very first time he'd been here, did 1 practice session, then had to race off to the airport and find his lost clothing, pick up the suitcase, got caught in traffic on the way back, missed the 2nd practice session, and people thought, oh, well, that'll be interesting. He was only 3/100ths off Martin Rump in the opening practice. His very first time here, came back and set pole by 0.3 of a second, which around here was almost light years, and they had to chase him right through round 7, so he really is the star.
And the word around the grid had been that he was going to be certainly one to watch, perhaps around the top 3. I think people were pretty impressed that he was straight away on pole position, and pretty comfortable race as well, wasn't it, in the end? Now, one thing he will have to contend with today is the extra 50 kilos in his car from winning yesterday's race. That will be something new for him to deal with. Alessio Piquerio right behind him in the grid, but on one row back in position number 3, has 20 kgs as well. So that could be perhaps an equaliser at the start.
Well, you've got to consider too, he's never used push to pass before. So that was another new addition for him. So he's had to take all of these things on board. But I rode in today from the hotel with him, and very much an unfazed young man, 19 years of age, very cool character, and has been impressive. He was telling me how he's in the title hunt for the Blancpain GT Sprint Series in Europe. So driving for WRT, who of course are managing that car here for him in the Cup this weekend. One of 4 service teams in the Cup. See the cars on the grid. Right of screen is the pole sitter. That was, of course, Stefan Rakelmi in that livery for much of this year, but it is Dries Van Thor this time. And he starts very much from the front foot in this race, round 8 of the 2017 championship.
Well, we joked yesterday, we mentioned a push to pass a moment ago. It was so comfortable, we thought perhaps he'd forgotten to use them, but he did use a couple in that final lap, probably just to test it out. The pro drivers, the professional drivers, have 6 throughout the course of this race, and then the Amateur Plus have 12, and the amateurs have 18. And it just explained for our viewers exactly what that extra boost means, Sean.
When did you become the numbers man?
Well, you give me such a hard time. I had to go away. I've been prepping all night long.
Okay, well, studying, you've done well. That's a gold start. But what it is, it's an additional 50 horsepower in each of the cars. So effectively, a Audi R8 LMS GT3 has 585 horsepower. They detune them through the engine management system by 50 horsepower. When you push the button, you get back to the full 585. That boost of power, the extra 50 horsepower, lasts for 10 seconds, but you only have, as you point out, 6 as a pro driver to do that. So,
well, Sean, let's take a look at this circuit. It is, of course, the home of the Chinese F1 Grand Prix. What are some of the key points on this circuit here?
Well, certainly that turn 1, 2, 3, 4 complex, called the yin-yang section often, that really does test drivers. So you get caught on the outside there, it may make it very, very interesting. You see a lot of contact there. Turn 5 down to turn 6. This signifies it is the full F1 international circuit. There is a cut through from 4 to 7. We've used that in the past, but this is the full circuit. Turn 10, need to be careful there on the exit. Then more of a swing back through 11, 12, 13, considered by many to be in tribute to the Parabolica at Monza in Italy. Turn 14, the kink at 15. Turn 16, the final left-hander, and you're home. 1.1 kilometres the length of that back straight. You see speeds approaching somewhere just over 260 kilometres per hour before a big break into that hairpin right-hander.
Good stuff, thanks, Sean. Now, some of our drivers, of course, have an extremely hectic weekend. They're also racing in the China GT Series, which finished just a few moments ago. From talking to the drivers yesterday, is this more of a positive, or are they getting, particularly today, it's hotter in the car. We saw Martin Rump trying to stay indoors and cool for as long as possible before getting back down for this championship.
Well, it is. Certainly temperatures are going to play a part. It is only a relatively short race. You have to be fit to race at this level. There is no question about that. So some of them may have done a half-hour stint. Alex Young, we talk about him being a 5-time winner of the Cup here. He just won another race in China GT alongside Zhu Jia, the team boss of the King's Racing operation. So he's hot, he's fired up, he's ready to go, and he'll be looking for his 6th victory in the Cup here and hopefully keep his championship points alive. He had conceded. We did hear from him after about round 4 of the championship. He said, championship for us is over. I really just want to win races now. And we thought maybe it's a little bit early to call that, but really there weren't too many people that could do much about Alessio Piquerio.
And it is worth saying it's hot here in Shanghai, but it's not quite as hot as we've had in Sepang, Malaysia, for example. The Cup in previous years has been to Taiwan. Very, very hot there. So these drivers are used to the heat. They can deal with this. And it's a sprint race. It's 30 minutes. So, yes, it does get very, very hot in the cars. But as you said, these guys are pretty fit. They know how to cope. Well,
you bring up Taiwan. That was interesting. Remember, we had Edo Mortara. Mr. Macau had turned up and driven in the past and subbed for a couple of drivers. And I remember one stage where the engineers said to him, look, you can have a cool suit. We're going to have it prepared for you, ready to go. And he said, hey, I'm a DTM driver. Yeah. I'm at the top of my game. I don't need that sort of thing. And they literally had to pour him out of the car after the first practice session. He said, I've had some hot drives in my life, but this is just incredible. We were feeling it down in pit lane, but certainly behind the wheel of these cars. They don't breathe so well. Of course, the windows are up these days for better aero and also for safety. You have no real way of staying cool, so you need to be fit. And all these drivers to compete at this level are certainly that.
So yesterday we had, of course, the rolling start. The opening race of the weekend is a rolling start. Today's race will be a standing start. So this is just one warm-up lap for the cars. Then they'll get back into position, and then we will be racing.
Interesting to see, because with 50 kilos of additional weight, that is a lot of ballast, that additional ballast that Dries Vanthoor is going to have to move off the line. He's not necessarily all that well versed with a standing start. Various championships, certainly in Europe, will run a rolling start. So it's likely it's something that he's going to have to contend with that's new. And if he hasn't had that experience, that may be all those drivers alongside him need. Now we're talking about Frankie Cheng, second in the championship. He may well be able to use that to, third rather, to good advantage.
That's a very, very good point. People familiar just with F1, of course, are used to that standing start, but in a lot of other championships, that's not the case. So Dries is only, as we keep saying, he's still a teenager, has obviously some great experience, but not a whole lot of it. So the start will be that key moment. If Frankie, or indeed Alessio, can get past him from positions 2 and 3, getting into turn 1, that will perhaps be the key moment.
I haven't had a chance to have a stab at Alessio Picariello yet, the championship points leader, but I certainly did with Martin Rump. And I said to him yesterday, hey, guess what? You're not the young rising star anymore. You're a 23-year-old. You're an old man. It's a 19-year-old Belgian now that has taken that mantle as being the young star that everybody's watching. And he said, oh, I felt a little bit under pressure, but really I'm thinking about the championship, not thinking about the championship, I'm thinking about race wins, and that's what I want to have here this weekend. And he wants to add to his winning tally here at Shanghai Circuit.
Well, if you look at the top 6, Frankie Chung really is the man who stands out in terms of age. Getting into that veteran category, which we've already added Alex Young to, who starts from the 4th row of the grid. He is in position number 7 and also has 35 kg, so he's going to find it tough to make a bid for the podium from there.
How about David Chen, though, starting alongside the 3-time champion, the man who's won 22 times in 63 starts now in the Audi R8 LMS Cup, better than 1 in 3. So you can never discount the number 1 entry, the Audi R8 LMS GT3 entry of the Malaysian master, Alex Young. And we see, we were talking yesterday about maturity with certainly the younger drivers versus the more senior drivers, that they can come back from a tough weekend and be able to recover. And we see that so often with Alex Young. He'd have a bad Saturday and a very strong Sunday with a victory and keep his tally going. And we said earlier, he's won another race, having won round 8 of China GT just about half an hour ago. So he's ready to go. Dries Vanthoor, the green car, right of screen, getting ready for a start. Frankie Cheng, left of screen. You'll see the green flag across the rear of the field. The 5 lights will go on. When they're out, we are away for round 8 of the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup. Red lights on, red lights off. We're away, standing start. How has Vanthoor gone? He's done brilliantly. Alessio Picariello too. What will he do? We go around the outside of his teammate, Frankie Chung, and maybe around the outside of Vanthoor into turn 1. It's going to be very close, side by side with the 2 Belgians. What's this going to end up with? Well, Alessio wants to win a championship. He wants to get the jump on Frankie Chung. He's done that. That's goal 1 done. I think his next goal will be to try and win this race, but he needs to watch out what's going on behind him.
Well, this could be very, very significant, and he almost got into the lead there, Alessio. He actually used the push to pass. You saw that light flashing on the back of his car. Dries Vanthoor in pole position didn't. Perhaps, again, as we mentioned, he forgot he had that capability, but he didn't need it as it turned out.
This is the point of the circuit that ended the 2016 championship between Alex Young and Alessio Picariello. So he knows not to dive down the inside there at turn 6. And of course, Frankie Chung will be in a watching brief. He might be mathematically in with a chance of this championship, but he knows that Alessio in front of him is his teammate. He's going to protect whatever he can on the tail of the MGT by absolute entry, the number 15 car of Alessio Picariello. Behind them is Sean Thong. He is looking to try and build on his stock as one of the rising young stars of Asia, the 21-year-old from Hong Kong, driving in the Tita Racing entry. Behind him, Mitch Gilbert, another driver, the young Australian-Malaysian, doing a great job. And there is Martin Rump in position number 6.
So just to clarify, it's obviously very, very early days, but if these 3, and in fact, if the field stays as it is, Alessio Picariello will clinch the championship at the end of this race. And here's a replay of that start, Sean.
Great start from Dries Vanthoor. Very good start from Alessio Picariello from the 2nd row to go around the outside of the young Belgian. But whilst he was keen to close the door, we've seen him do that in the past, certainly with Mitch Gilbert. He is not a teammate to the other young Belgian, Dries Vanthoor, so he wasn't quite sure just how aggressive he could be. You can see 6 on the side of Vanthoor's car. He's got 6 push to pass left. He has not used one yet. Sean Thong going very wide on the exit of turn 14 into turn 15. Final corner through to complete the opening lap for Dries Van Thor. Well, that's getting very, very wide. You need to be careful doing things like that, Alessio Picariello. And also too here, with that AstroTurf on the outside of the circuit, it can be very loose. You can lose traction. That could end up with a very big accident. He needs to be very careful to do that, having set the fastest third sector of this race so far.
So it's Van Thor, Picariello and Frankie Chung are the top three. Sean Thong in fourth, and then Mitch Gilbert and Martin Rump just swapped places from the start, with Gilbert moving up one into fifth position after the first lap.
Alex Young carrying on in position number 7, his starting position ahead of David Chen, KOU, Jeffrey Lee, Burit Biram Bhakti, who very much he may well take the AM title with victory here today. Sun Jing Zhu behind him, and so too Lim Kyong Wee, driving the number 10 entry, the car that we've seen for most of this season, driven by Audi Hong Kong's Marchie Lee. But up front, Dries Van Thor, wow, very, very impressive young man. We've spoken about it earlier. Pit Lane's been talking about it since he first appeared here on Thursday night, and very professional approach, one of the rising stars of world motorsport, the young Belgian.
Now, Sean, again, early days, but if Alessio can stay in position number 2 behind Dries Van Thor, he will clinch the title. Is that going to be his strategy at this point, or is he going to think, I've got less weight in the car, I didn't like have my nose perhaps put out of joint with this new kid coming in yesterday, I want to be the top Belgian, I want to get the race win and the title?
Well, he certainly has been. I mean, this year to this point, if Dries Van Thor hadn't arrived, you could have pretty much put your money on Alessio having won at least one race this weekend, potentially two. He's been just that good. A little bit out of sorts after qualifying yesterday, and round 7 didn't deliver perhaps what we expected to see. Okay, you finished third. How's that on a bad day? You finish on the podium. It may be the bottom step, but for some drivers in this field, that would be a good day for them. So he was very downtrodden and sullen when we spoke to him at the press conference yesterday, but here he is in position 2. They want to win races, but by the same contrast, we saw it last year, he built a championship out of having not won a race. So he's a very smart driver. He will take all that into consideration, and it won't be a bad thing to have on your resume that you are the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup champion.
And after coming so close last year, how good would it be for him to wrap this up with a whole race weekend to go? That would really sort of make the points that he is the new man to be reckoned with.
Oh, this is getting a little bit interesting. That's Martin Rupp in the silver car. Mitch Gilbert in the OD racing entry, battling hard, and right behind them, the man who's won more races in this series than any other, Alex Young, the reigning champion. He may well be displaced as the champion this afternoon in just about 10 laps' time, with the performance currently of the man in second position, Alessio Picariello. A little bit of damage too to the right rear of Mitch Gilbert's car. Shouldn't create too much of a drama. Car going off, that's Burit Biram Bhakti spinning at top of screen. Now he doesn't need that in his battle for the AM classification. He could be crowned champion today, so the Thai driver did not need to see a spin. That has put him back behind the 8 ball. He's gone from first to third in the AM classification after that spin. Mitch Gilbert back ahead of Martin Rump. Very wide too for Alex Young. David Chen behind them in position number 8, and then KOU, the Audi career entry, immediately behind him. Fastest third sector for Mitch Gilbert last time round.
And Alex Young, just at the back of those 3 cars on your screen now in the red and black car, will probably just be happy to let these youngsters fight it out. Perhaps as they make a mistake or one moves to cover the other, he can nip on through. He is, of course, carrying the extra 35 kg, so he won't be doing anything too silly, hoping to pick up some places there. But at this point, he's just hoping that something happens to Alessio, because he can't do anything from back there.
This is on. Now, he needs to be very careful, Alessio Picariello. He can open the door, and the championship could potentially go through to the final event at Zhejiang if he's not careful. So he wants to be pushing and racing hard. We saw him do that last season, remember with Edo Mortara. You're quite happy to feed him a wheel. He is a racer. He wants to win races. He can be very aggressive, but he wants to piece together a championship. So we'll see just how far he's going to be pushed. You see Frankie Cheng moving in under his rear wing, and Sean Thong is setting impressive lap times. In fact, last time round, fastest lap of this race, a 2:08.7 2.29 for the young man from Hong Kong.
Now, Sean, if you're in the Absolute Racing garage and you're seeing Alessio really putting the pressure on here, what are you thinking to yourself? If these two come together and perhaps take each other out, as you said, that really opens the door for the championship. Great from our point of view, but not so much from his team bosses.
Well, let's go back a few years ago where with just needing 1 point to win a championship, one Alex Jung went into Macau, destroyed his car in qualifying, lost the championship by a solitary point to Adley Fong, who's here this weekend. We'll hopefully hear from him a little bit later in the program. But that's all it takes, is throw your weekend away. And if he opens the door for another driver, certainly the calibre of Alex Jung, who's currently in position 2, he's amassed 3 consecutive championships, and in many cases by just a solitary point. So he knows how to be in this fight. He could come through at Zhejiang. No one's ever been there before and raced in the Cup, so he could come through and amass enough points to be right back in this title fight if Alessio strikes any trouble.
Now, Frankie Chung in third. What's he going to be thinking? Because he's really the man who has to make something happen to get ahead of Alessio. Otherwise, the championship is over, but he is the man who has the power in his hands if he can get past the Belgian ahead of him to continue the championship race into Zhejiang.
5 push to pass still for Frankie Chung. We talk about him as being a pioneer of Chinese motorsport, a star. He's been around a very, very long time. This is his home circuit, but in 19 starts, he's never won a round of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. He was right in the fight today. In fact, he shared in the outright victory in China GT as a guest driver alongside Anthony Liu, another Chinese driver who's based here locally in Shanghai. So Frankie too has a victory under his belt today, and he'd like nothing more than to take another one away. And as you say, these two young Belgians at the front of the field come together for any reason, and that window of opportunity could be open for the Chinese driver.
Well, one thing is clear, even though Dries Van Thor has led the entirety of this race weekend from all through yesterday's race and all of this, he's certainly not having it all his own way, is he? It was pretty comfortable yesterday, and this looks to be close as Alessio makes a move there.
Yeah, again, he needs to be very certain that he can make a move and make the move stick. Interesting point made in the coverage we're doing with China GT. Co-commentated there by the very attractive Adley Fong, by contrast to the man standing beside me right now. Thank you, sorry about that. But he was admitting something I hadn't thought about is mandated this year are window nets either side of the driver, so that can have an effect additionally on your visibility. There's another challenge if you make a big move deep under brakes, and of course these cars change direction so quickly that sometimes you're too committed to a passing move. When you turn in, the other driver turns across in front of you, having not seen you, the inevitable contact happens, and then it could be lights out for both of them. That would open the door for Frankie Chung. We're not at that stage yet, and again, he amassed a very good haul of points through consistency to build a championship last year, Alessio Piccarello. So whilst he wants to win, he's not going to do anything silly. Well, Martin Rump, he's not had a year to remember, has he?
Certainly hasn't got a good weekend either.
You could have put points on he and Alessio Piccarello going toe-to-toe all year through the 2017 season of the Cup. And unfortunately, right from the get-go, really, Martin has had nothing but drama. Very safe, very consistent, very fast driver in his open-wheeler career in Formula Masters China. But also he there's someone missing. Oh no, he's just tucked in under the rear wing. This is a run for the lead for Alessio.
Alessio was using his push to pass, and Dries saw that and responded and pushed it as well. But here they go.
Don't think you'd go around the outside down at turn 14. Close the door. He could do the crossover if Van Thor goes in too deep. He hasn't. Look at what protective line he's running. And Frankie, we're talking about, he's a teammate in Absolute Racing with Alessio Piccarello. He's doing everything he can to monster Dries Van Thor. Now, here's an initiation. You're not going to get it easy, son. He's taken push to pass. He's going to go around the outside. Van Thor's protecting. He's gone for push to pass. Coming across the front straight. Side by side. Rubbings racing, boys. Don't get too carried away. And back on the brakes, just nipped the gravel, gone wide. That's the crossover, opened the door for Alessio.
And
that was
right
brilliant driving. Frankie Cheng taking an opportunity, and Sean Dong looking to try and make a 3 through. So Dries Van Thor, there's a lesson. I'm the top dog here, Sunshine. You can drop back a little bit. I'm going to take the front running. I want to win this championship in style. And how about Alessio Piccarello? There's a championship on the table. We're talking about what happens. What happens if he's off, if he doesn't finish. He doesn't care. He just wants to win this race. And that's the sign of a true racer. Frankie Chung, I would hazard a guess, is going to run tail gunner and protect the asset of that points-leading Absolute Racing driver. And this could be a nice run for them. What does Dries Van Thor have left? He's been shaken. See whether he's stirred or not. 2 push to pass left for Alessio, but interestingly, 5 for Frankie Chung.
Well, you raise an interesting question. These two are teammates. So Frankie is the man who has it in his power to try and overhaul Alessio here. He's got those extra push to passes. He doesn't have the weight in the car. Alessio only has 20 kgs, but it is something. He's been driving very well. He's desperate to do well here. Does he help his teammate, or does he try to keep that championship alive? I would say, arguably, he's got to go for the latter.
I think we've always considered that Frankie's a gentleman. Does he? Well, let's be honest, in 6 seasons of the Cup, he's not one of those drivers you'd say, oh, look at that, Sean Thong, could you go much further off circuit coming out of the Parabolica? You talk about a wide entry to the corner, that's well and truly cutting an apex off. What was he doing out there? How much ground has he actually lost in all of that? It'll be interesting to see the lap. He's trying to clean up his tyres too. That'll be the big problem under brakes, that nothing goes wrong. But Alessio Piccirillo, you've got to give him full points for that move. He set Dries Van Thor up in that move, and he made it work for him. Used the push to pass properly. He doesn't have them in reserve now. He needs to get away at the front of this field, but what a fantastic run. And he's open to lead up now on Frankie Chung. And Frankie, well, again, we say he is a gentleman. He's not one of those drivers where you will hear his rivals say when you're racing door-to-door with Frankie that you're going to have a problem. Often some of the young hotheads can create a bit of a problem. You're not sure. They're not predictable. They may make a late move and actually try and steal a position. But Frankie is a little bit more gentlemanly than that, why he has so much respect and support in China. And you'd expect that he will quite happily run tail gunner to his teammate in this race.
Well, we talked about him having a decision to make, but if Alessio continues to put laps together like this, he might not have a choice if Alessio beginning to inch away here, even though he does have that extra little bit of weight in the car.
We've seen that this year, though, time and time again. Again, part of the reason why he got to the midpoint of this season so far up in championship points, the reason why he could clinch this after just 8 of 10 races, is because he has the ability to run at the front of the field, even with a success penalty. Now, to maximise, or to equalise, rather, the performance of the teams, the winner gets a 50 kilo additional weight penalty for the next race. 35 for the second place car, 30 for the third place, sorry, 20 for the third place car. They carry that into the next race. So it is to make it a little bit more of a handicap for each of those drivers, just to make things a little bit more interesting and stop the superstars running away too far at the front of this field. But certainly that hasn't, so far this season, seemed to deter Alessio Piccirillo. And what a way to go through to a championship. If he finishes this race like this, this would be his 4th win this year and a deserving champion for the 2017 Cup season.
I was just about to say, absolutely, you want to take that championship with a win if in any way possible. Of course, you take it any way you can get it, but...
Well, look at last year. Last year ended in the stewards' room,
yeah.
And it has in the past in the Cup ended in the stewards' room.
And it takes the gloss off, it does.
It does, it certainly does, and nobody would deny that Alessio Piccirillo deserves that this year. It was interesting, pre-season we talked about many of his rivals having driven in things like the Asian Le Mans Cup or overseas in Europe or the Sepang 12 Hour or any other kind of motorsport competition. Alessio Piccirillo, no, he'd been at home getting his head right psychologically. He'd been working on his fitness, he'd been working on his racecraft through theory and working with engineers. And he came out for the first round and blew everybody into the weeds. It was a very, very impressive performance, and he's been unstoppable since then.
Well, you'd be hard pushed to bet against him at the moment, but there are still 6 laps to go. The gap is just over a second to Frankie Chung, and he will be still staying in there, giving everything that he has. But at the moment, it's looking very likely that Alessio Piccirillo will become the champion of this season.
2:08.7 last time round, 1.5 seconds up on Frankie Chung. Very impressive drive by Alessio Piccirillo. And we said it just earlier in the program that during the media conference yesterday, there was a very sullen Alessio Piccirillo sitting there with a 51-point championship lead, 1 point shy basically today of taking the championship victory. And I said to him, what's wrong? Like, was this getting to you? Was the championship battle getting to you? Was it playing on your mind? He said, no, I just want to win races. I'm annoyed that I wasn't in a position where I could get to the front of this field. But he said, tomorrow, I'm going to change that. I'm going to win the race. And that's confidence, and you can't blame him for having that confidence when he makes moves like he did on Dries Van Thor. And again, that's a maturity thing. Dries is in his first real full year of competition. He used last year to get himself acclimatised and ready. He's a race winner in Europe against some of the best drivers in the world, in a position to potentially take out the Blancpain GT Sprint Cup this year for the WRT team. So there was no denying how good he was when he arrived here. He showed that and proved it in the Castrol Racing Team entry yesterday with victory comfortably over Alex Young. But Alessio Piccarello, we talked about how this young man had taken some of the gloss off how good he is, and he wasn't prepared to take that 2 days running, and he gave as much as he got back yesterday to take the lead of this race, and he's starting to romp away.
Well, as dominant as Dries van Floor, the man in the green car right there, has been previously through the weekend, he was beginning to lose a little bit of time to Frankie as well.
Now here's a good battle. This is the outgoing AM champion. That, of course, is Jeffrey Lee. Has had more starts in the Cup than any other driver in this field. Battling behind is a man who drives quite often in Pro-Am and GT3 Cup competition. That, of course, is Sun Jingzhou, also driving for the Absolute Racing operation. Both these drivers driving for Absolute, who is the, well, has had more starts in the Cup as a service team than anyone else, because, of course, for the first 4 years, they were the only service team in the Audi R8 LMS Cup. Of course, joined by WRT, Phoenix Racing Asia and KCMG for season 2017. So second at the moment in the AM Plus division for Jeffrey Lee. David Chen, who's leading the AM Plus classification, is leading that class, currently shown in position 8, trailing around behind the South Korean KOU. Now, Martin Rump, we saw him just before at the start of this race in here in the lounge, getting all comfortable and cool. He's just wandered back in, whilst round 8 of the championship continues to be raged on track. And that's not where he wanted to be, certainly not as the second most successful driver in the Cup in the history, with the 20 starts now for the series here at Shanghai.
Well, this is a pretty good battle, Sean. It's running down for 9th and 10th position, but these two certainly going at it. You see the 5 push-to-passes on Jeffrey Lee's cars. Actually started with more because the different categories have different numbers of those boosts pre-race. So there's still plenty of race to go, with about 4.5 laps before the checkered flag here.
Well, 12 he started with, so he's used 7 with Sun Jingzhou behind him. Can we pick the number up there? Does that say 0?
Yeah, he's out.
Well, he's used all 18 of his. Thanks very much. I can range up behind you, get onto the tail, but now I've got nothing left. From Jeffrey's perspective, he's got 5 to save him from any kind of attack. And this is part of the strategy. We did see earlier in the year that the lead driver started with more, so double the number of push-to-pass for the AM Plus drivers, triple for the AM drivers. So if the pros started with 10, it was 20 and 30 for the others, but they didn't tend to use them to their best advantage, and it was a little bit more challenging. So they limited the number to try and mix things up with the racing, and that has had a bit of an impact over the most recent rounds. There's Bhakti. He's got things gathered back up again, and he's on the tail of Lim Kyung Wee, who has taken over the reins of the number 10 Audi Hong Kong entry, usually circulated by Marchie Lee, the 2012 Cup champion.
Well, we've had some swings back and forth with the push-to-passes. A lot of the young drivers, there's one being used on track, as you see. With a lot of the young drivers were getting very, very trigger happy, using them far too early and then running out. Some of the veterans would have too many left at the end, and then they were trying to adapt and swing the other way. It's now got right to about a balance where people are used to exactly how many they have per circuit. It is different for different race weekends, of course, and that will depend on the track as those in charge decide how to do it. But
interestingly, Van Thur at the front of the field, he has just a solitary push to pass left, and Sean Thong is closing in behind him. He'd like nothing more than a return to the podium. He was here on the podium for the final round of the championship in 2016. Has been here in the past, but has run cameo appearances. This is the first full program from the 20-year-old from Audi Hong Kong, and he will be very keen to try and make something out of that. The battle for the AM Plus and the AM divisions goes on. Sun Jingzhou in the blue and silver car from Absolute Racing. The silver, blue and red car, the J-Fly entry from Absolute Racing of Jeffrey Lee. And Audi Taiwan immediately ahead of him. Jeffrey Lee circulating in position number 9. David Chen leading the AM Plus division. He's in position number 8 in the TSR-TK. You can see him top of screen there as Mitch Gilbert is monstering the tail of Sean Thong. 2 push to pass left for the Audi Tita Racing Team entry. 1 for the OD Racing entry of Mitch Gilbert. That should allow Sean Thong to have a little, well, actually it might be 0. Looking at the side of Sean Thong, so one of the digital arms is out, so that could well say 0 on the side of the number 8 Tita Racing entry.
Well, 3 laps to go now, and Alessio Picariello must be beginning to imagine victory. What's going through his mind, Sean?
Well, you talk to drivers about this in the past, and they say they're hearing every sound in the car. They're looking at all the warning lights and trying to keep tabs on the data as Burt embarked in this battle with Lim Kyung Wee towards the rear of this field over the AM division. And of course, if he manages to get enough points, we could see Burt embarking and crown the AM champion still 2 races in before the end of the season. Dries Van Thor, what a drive he has had. You can't deny how good the young Belgian has been. And he too is he slowed down? No, it's just the way it appeared with that long lens as they rose up over the hill from turn 6. But he too understands that if he was in a position where he was racing for a championship and somebody could jeopardise him who's just come in for a single race, or maybe in this case we will see Dries Van Thor too at the Zhejiang circuit. He is registered for the rest of this season. Then he would probably be a little disappointed that somebody could jeopardise his championship. So he may have elected to just pull out of that and allow Alessio through.
Well, Sean Thong using every inch of this circuit and every fringe as well, by the looks of things, going left wide and wide right as well. So that allows Mitch to just close up a little bit on the youngster.
Does he have any push to pass left? Can Mitch do anything with his? They only have 6 again. That's the way the pros started this race. But we have seen time and time again it hasn't really provided them that additional advantage that many thought it may have. And what it has done, though, is make it a little bit more competitive for the AM and the AM Plus division, which we're seeing on screen. And these are terrific battles a little bit further back in the pack. There's Burit Birambakti there. It's the car on the left, silver and black entry from Thailand, supported too by the Absolute Racing operation. Is looking to try and move its way forward on that silver and gold Audi Hong Kong entry, the colours that we are used to seeing with, of course, Marchi Lee, who was tied up in China GT this weekend. On screen, David Chen for the Tianxia Racing Team. Very impressive debut from him. He wasn't there at the first round of the championship, but certainly since Malaysia has been very, very competitive and done a great job, of course, at Zhejiang. South Korea, he started for, at the earlier rounds of the championship. He started on the front row for the second race, I think it was, in South Korea, and put in a very, very sterling drive. Big fan of the sport and a little bit in awe of drivers like Alex Young, Sean Thong, and of course Marchi Lee. He said, I've been watching them for years. They are icons in China. And he said to be on the grid with them was really awe-inspiring to start with. And he said, I probably gave them a little bit too much respect on the circuit, but certainly that's changed as he's moved his way forward and become more competitive in the Cup this season.
Well, he's currently running in position number 8. That's where he started, just beginning to sort of have lost touch with that leading group, but very much ahead of the other amateurs and Amateur Plus cars behind him. So a very solid performance from David Chen.
It says that Alessio's leading by just over a second from Frankie Chum. I thought it was a little bit bigger margin than that, but 4 seconds back now to Dries Van Thor. So they really did have something in reserve, but that's not something we're surprised by in some respects, because really we've seen the Absolute Racing Team manage to step up, and we talked about the data sharing between drivers like Frankie, Alessio Picariello and Mitch Gilbert this year. Well, there they are at the front of the field. Frankie certainly is only a second behind us now. Sean Thong has Mitch Gilbert right up under his rear wing. Will he use that single push to pass to try and make the run down the outside? But Sean will do everything he can to go in deep under brakes and force Mitch wide. Don't think he's been able to do it. He's probably going to say 0 on the... Yes, there you go. I'd say he's used his push to pass to get alongside, but then he can't make the passing move as Alex Young watches them from behind. Uh-oh, this is getting a little ugly. Down to the last corner. Sean's got the inside run, the crossover for Gilbert. Yes, I think he's done it too. Be a drag race. Sean will be none too impressed as they get the last lap board as we come along the line, and he's taken the position. And now it's a 3-car freight train with Alex Young behind, watching the two of them. He's going to make the move up the inside of Sean Thong, and contact between the two Phoenix Racing Asia drivers. Marchi Lee won't be loving that down there in the garages. There's looks like the two Malaysians there on screen. Mitch Gilbert was Alex Young looking to try and take up another position. He will push very, very hard. The outgoing champion of the Audi R8 LMS Cup, a 3-time champion, the winningest driver in the 6 seasons of the Cup, but he's about to hand the mantle across to Alessio Piccirillo, who continues to lead this field around as it goes down to turn 6.
Oh,
and that's backfired. Allowed Sean Thong back up the inside with the crossover. And is Alex Young finished yet, or has he got more in store?
Well, this is an action-packed last lap, but the man in front, of course, this is position number 3, Dries Van Thor. Alessio Piccirillo at the head of this field, just moments away from clinching the title.
It has been a great race, and we talked about Alessio Piccirillo. We've been talking about him all season, and what a way to go into this championship as the battle continues on. Back down for positions 4, 5 and 6. Mitch Gilbert now 4th. Sean Thong back to 5th. And that is the outgoing champion, Alex Young, in position 6, having just come fresh from victory in China GT a bit over half an hour ago. And for Mitch Gilbert, he'll take good stock out of this and try and carry that through to a better performance for the Audi racing team for the final round of the championship in a few weeks' time at Zhejiang International Circuit.
Well, this right here, of course, is the championship leader and the race leader. Alessio Piccirillo still has one push to pass in the tank, in reserve. He's not going to need it as he comes around into these final stages, Sean.
Well, what a great result. Hats off to the young Belgian. Just had a birthday recently, and what a gift this will be. Add this one to the mantle. Alessio Piccirillo, champion of the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup season. Frankie Chung crossed the line for 2nd, and then it is Dries Van Thor. Behind him, Mitch Gilbert, Sean Thong, Alex Young, KOU, and David Chen will likely wrap up the AM Plus title 2 this weekend. It could be all 3 titles put out of contention before the final round of the championship at Zhejiang in October. What a great race this was. Fantastic effort. Here's this battle. That's Jeffrey Lee, the outgoing AM champion. Sun Jing Zhu immediately behind him. Of course, Jeffrey is racing in the AM Plus classification. He will likely lose this title race this time round to David Chen. Sun Jing Zhu runs cameo appearances in the Cup, doesn't enter every race, but likely to after taking Lim Kyong Wee in the closing stages of this race. Burit Birambakti will take the top points for the AM division. In fact, he'll take 2nd for the AM division behind Sun Jing Zhu, but likely take the top points for the championship and may well have sealed that deal too. So we could see 3 new champions with 2 rounds of the 2017 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup still to go. It's been a very busy weekend here at Shanghai International Circuit. It's not over quite yet, but for the Audi R8 LMS Cup, well, this is season over for the championship, and we have a new champion coming through, Alessio Piccirillo. As that is Alex Young coming through the field, just acknowledges Frankie Chung, and at the top of the frame there, no doubt he will have been given some acknowledgement from Alex Young. Not quite sure what the depths and details of that acknowledgement may have been, but certainly they've had a great battle 12 months ago to close out the 2016 title. Right here, unfortunately, that one ended in the steward's office. This one is definitely unquestionable because he is the new champion for the Cup and a deserving champion too. Well, for the MGT team by Absolute.
He got very feisty 12 months ago, and particularly some of those incidents on track as well. There were some extremely tense press conferences, I'm sure you remember, Sean, where they basically didn't want to look at each other. Very, very tough competitors on the track. This year it's been, I think, friendlier just because there hasn't quite been that competition in the standings, much to Alex's chagrin, I'm sure, but he has, as I said, been a deserved champion. Now, if we were to just cast our minds back through the 8 races that we've had, what for you stands out as the moment for Alessio?
I think really he sealed the deal at the start of the year. Again, we were talking earlier in the program about the fact that many of these drivers had been race ready. They came into the opening round of the season with race miles under their belt for 2017. Alessio hadn't. He'd been out of the car, but mentally and physically he was prepared, and he dominated that opening event with victory straight out of the box, and he really has been a standout this year. He's going to drive back to the garage. Well, I mean, of course, he's going to drive back to Parc Ferme, where he is #1. He'll get out of the car, having taken his 4th victory for the 2017 season. Here we go. We're going to get the signature move. Alessio Piccirillo, the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup, is one of the team bosses from Absolute that has put a lot of faith in Alessio Picariello. Of course, Ingo Mater. Here he is. He's going for the signature move. No, he's going to do the fist pump first. No,
He wants
no
the board.
Usain Bolt. He wants that board. He is the champion and very big with his crew. Very popular with the Absolute team too. Martin Kuhl, Director of Audi Sport Customer Racing Asia, and has been a popular addition to the Audi R8 LMS Cup field, and a hell of a nice guy.
And nice to wrap it up on the Sunday when he can really celebrate this evening instead of having to worry about a race the next day.
Oh, absolutely. That's one thing he put out of his mind. I would just about put money on him winning the last 2 rounds of the championship too. So dominant has he been this year, but he doesn't have to think about the weight of the championship. Good to see Dries Van Thor there. We're being dominated by Belgians at the moment. We might see a big influx of young drivers from Belgium for season 2018. And that would be no problem either, but a lot of faith put in Alessio Picariello by certainly Ingo Mater and Fabien Fior, the team bosses of Absolute Racing. We'll be down with the new champion, and Sophie on the grid, Alessio Picariello.
Alessio, congratulations taking the winner of the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup. Tell us about the race, especially your fantastic overtaking move over Dries.
Well, it was really tough because the track conditions were difficult. It was really warm in the car, but I had a good start. I went around the outside to pass Frankie, and yeah, then I knew Dries will struggle with the 50 kilos. I was quite much faster in the beginning, but I didn't want to crash him or whatever, so I waited a good time, and then he did a mistake in the last corner. I could pass him, and yeah, taking the championship with a race win is just wonderful. Papa, maman, papa, j'ai réussi!
Once again, thank you so much. Congratulations, and back to our panel.
Well, yeah, deserving winner. He really is, and a hell of a nice guy. And you like to see people that are that passionate about the sport be able to put something away like that and to do it with the win. As we've said in the past, we've said a number of times today, stewards have decided the championship in past seasons. Nobody wants to see that, least of all the drivers. There's no question who won the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup. It would be nice to see for us to take it down to the final round or the final event of the season. But hey, you can't deny a guy who has been that dominant and that fast so far this season. He really has been the standout. So fantastic job.
Well, let's go down to Frankie
we'll
Chung,
get ready
who's
for
down
Frankie shortly. So
Frankie is down with Sophie, and we can join them now.
Frankie, a podium finish this weekend, especially with no weight in your car. Is this the best result you can get, or a little bit disappointed? Because now you can challenge for the second place overall.
Yeah. I did a good start, but everyone seems to be quite equal. And yeah, it's extremely hot in the car. Also, particularly, I'm doing the 2 races in the same weekend. And Alessio seems to have a little bit stronger pace than me with old tires. And also, he deserved to be the champion of 2. And now I'm second in the championship with 1 weekend to go. So I just try to be focused on this. Finishing second is also a great result. Thank you.
Prepare for the next race. Thank you so much, Frankie. And now back to your guys.
Well, Sean, nice to hear Frankie say that Alessio's deserved champion. You can see from Frankie there how hot it was.
Yeah.
We talked about that before.
Well, we're talking too about whether there would be any impact on those drivers that did double duty. Of course, China GT saw Martin Rump, Alex Young and Frankie Chung doing double duty. They just got out of a car hot, had to jump in the next car to do the 8th round of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. And, well, there you go. Frankie's just explained that it was hot work in the car. And that may have just kept him off the pace a little bit, but I really don't think Frankie had too much to give to Alessio. So we are going down to Sophie. She's with Dries Van Thor, the winner of round 7 of the Cup.
And take the winner yesterday, however, 3rd place today with 50 kg in your car. How do you feel this weight affect your performance today?
A little bit, but I don't think I can blame it only on the 50 kilo. I was, for sure, it's not helping under the brakes where I was struggling the most. Overall, I was not really happy how everything with the car went, but anyway, I think the 1st and the 3rd in my debut is not too bad, 2 times the pole. So I think I've shown my name, and that's the most important. So congrats to Alessio for the championship, but yeah, this was the hardest we could do today, and focus is on next week, so we'll try to do our best there as well.
Thank you so much, Chris. And now it's our time also back to our guys.
Well, he's certainly shown his name. That is for sure. I think perhaps a bit of a wake-up call. Perhaps it was almost all too easy, but with missing that second free practice session and just cruising through qualifying in yesterday's race, and then he didn't have it his own way, did he at all?
Well, we saw that during the year. If you remember, Martin Rump had an issue where his car had to be very significantly remodelled after an issue with another championship. And during that, they lost practice sessions because the cars basically, as soon as an event are over, are put into a shipping container and sent off to the next event because we run all over Asia. The car arrives on a Tuesday or Wednesday. The team pulls it out of the container. If there had been prior damage, they need to work on it. They lost time. The point was they lost preparation time, and he said he felt that cost him in that particular event. Of course, he's had a lot of bad luck too this year, Martin Rump. Three-time winner last year and not a great success this time. So we are going to go back to the highlights of round 8 of the championship, see how this played out and how Alessio Picariello was able to piece together his championship for the 2017 season. Everybody on the grid ready to go. You see a few deep breaths from Picariello, and he got off the line brilliantly. Standing start. Vanthoor hadn't done that one before, but he was very quickly monstered by Alessio Picariello, the grey and yellow car there. He used push to pass to get alongside his compatriot, but Vanthoor had the inside running, squeezed Alessio a little bit wide. No way through there, as there was a little bit of touching and brake lock up down into turn 3. Further back in the field, that looks like it was Alex Jung caught a little bit on the outside of the circuit. And Vanthoor started to get away. They were very, very wide. Alessio incredibly wide on turn 16 on the exit in the opening lap. But then he set him up quite nicely on the run down to turn 14. Opened the door a little bit, gave him a little bit of a push just to let him know he was there. And that really set things up, and it all came to a head. Next time round, Alessio got alongside, used the push to pass, then made his move to try and get through to the lead of this race.
And worth making the point, Sean, that he didn't need to win this race to win the title, but he wanted that win, and he really went for it, and this is the result.
This was the setup, side by side, and Vanthoor had the inside run, but he got a little bit of the dirty part of the circuit, couldn't quite pull the car up, forced him wide. That opened the door for Alessio, and Frankie Chung protecting his tail gunner, the teammate, the Absolute Racing teammate, followed him through. And then Sean Dong very, very wide on the exit of turn 13, gathered it all back up again. He was battling back there in 4th position with Mitch Gilbert. Martin Rump, unfortunately, he had a drama, pulled out of this race. And, well, as he shows, through the hands in the air. Good battle, too, between Virat Birambakti, and that is Lim Kyong Wee subbing for Marchie Lee in the Audi Hong Kong entry. The AM Plus front runner, David Chen from Tianxia Racing Team, was pretty much a lonely race for him. Good battle then started between Sean Dong and Mitch Gilbert and Alex Jung over the closing stages of this race. Over position 4, a little bit of banging doors and side pods there. And ultimately, this one went down to turn 1. Alex Jung tried to move up the inside. Contact between the two Phoenix Racing Asia teammates. That opened the door for the number 1 car, the outgoing champion, the 3-time champion of the Audi R8 LMS Cup. But it still wasn't over, still a little bit more pushing and shoving to go on. And, well, this is a corner that was memorable in the 2016 season. Opened the door again for Sean Thong. He took the position back over his teammate, and they carried on. But up front, well, no one was stopping Alessio Picariello. Even Frankie Chung, his teammate, had nothing to offer the young Belgian. Through the final corner, win number 4 for the season, but with it, more importantly, the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup title.
Well, this race had it all, didn't it, Sean? And even in that last lap, once we knew that Alessio had it pretty much all wrapped up, there was still those dramas in the placings behind him. And that's been the season, the case really with the season throughout. We've had some very, very dramatic races. One thing I did want to mention was just the background of Alessio Picariello, and he was pretty much lingering, waiting for a call a few years back when we were working on the Formula Masters China series, as it was then. He got a call from the Absolute Racing team, and they brought him over to Asia, and he just hasn't looked back. It was really, really nice to see him. Shout out to his mum and dad there, who are obviously watching back home in Europe. And, you know, that means a lot to him. They supported him while he was basically just waiting for that call. He was not racing for almost a whole year. It's worth stressing.
Absolutely, that. And a lot of faith put in him by Ingo Mader and Fabian Fiora, and they have been the recipients of the championship again this year for Absolute Racing. So we will be across to the podium very, very shortly. In fact, we're across there now. There is the man who stood on the top step yesterday, Dries Van Thor. He's taken over the position that was occupied yesterday by Alessio Picariello. And it's nice that Alessio is going to stand on that top step and take the championship prize. And a good job from him again. We keep saying that, but we can't reiterate enough just how good a job Alessio Picariello has done in this season. Very soon we might be joined by the 2013 Cup champion Adelie Fong, but when that happens, he'll explain just how hard it is to win a championship. There it is. He's got the pit board. It signals he is the champion. And you can see Dries Van Thor. There it is. There's the signature move. Yeah. Flash Gordon. Wasn't it Flash Gordon? Okay, Usain Bolt. Fair enough. Maybe for the older of us in the crew, there's a Flash Gordon.
Well, who knows? Maybe it's going to be called the
It's going to be called the Alessio Picariello. Yeah. You'll see a whole feast of young karting drivers getting out of their karts doing the point to the sky, the double-figured point to the sky. Number one, yes, you are Alessio Picariello, not just the race winner. You are the 2017 Cup champion and a deserving champion in that too.
Well, it was worth waiting for. You could see, as you mentioned, he was pretty southern yesterday, clearly holding all that emotion.
But that's
inside.
A proper racer. We're talking yesterday to Emanuele Pirro, who has huge experience, multiple winner at Le Mans. And he's talking about the passion you have for motorsport. It drives you forward. And for a young guy who wasn't really sure what his career may be at some point, he was picked up, brought to Asia, and now he has this championship trophy and a very, very deserving winner. These two young guys comparing notes about how maybe they might have gone a little bit quicker or how things actually played out. I'd like to celebrate, but be thinking about the next race, always thinking about the next race.
The next races, of course, will be in Zhejiang in about a month or just a little bit under a month's time. We have the final races of the championship rounds 9 and 10, so you can join us for those as well.
And the very first time the Cup in its 6-year history will have been at the Zhejiang circuit, of course a new addition to the platform of circuits here in China. Not too far from where we are in Shanghai, it's a couple of 100 kilometres away. And we're very interested to see the Zhejiang circuit. A lot of elevation changes, which I'm certainly looking forward to seeing. An interesting tunnel through to the pit lane. And it will be interesting because the playing field will be levelled again. David Chen there, right of screen, the AM Plus winner, and likely as a result of today's result, the AM Plus champion for season 2017. With any luck, we may well hear from Alessio Picariello, the 2017 champion. He has to go through the podium to the press conference, but with any luck, we'll keep our fingers crossed. We may see him, have him visit us on the panel and explain just how he feels.
So he'll be probably happy to hear the national anthem in just a few moments. So
can you sing that one?
Not quite.
It's a very good thing, actually.
All the words, but
on reflection, I'm very happy that you won't be doing that. If your singing voice is anything like your arithmetic, we'll be in all sorts of trouble. Sorry, I did say I wouldn't throw you under the bus today.
Still live, Sean. Just remind me.
I lied. Well, there you go. There's another addition. He got the fastest lap as well. So a nice job for Alessio. He's completed. He's gone out in style. Championship, race win, and fastest lap. Thank you very, very much. Nice result for the Absolute Racing driver. Ready for photographs, and I am sure there will be a few empty bottles of celebratory champagne at the end of this photographic session. And rightfully so too. We'll see. Maybe you want to take it home and share it with the family, share it with the crew down there at Absolute Racing. They have done a great job with the young man. The MGT team by Absolute Operation Victory. David Chen enjoying that fantastic effort.
Well,
so, well, I mean, that's the championship over. Thanks very much. We'll see you next year.
We do, of course, have that next race weekend that we've just been talking about.
Of course we do.
Lovely to see Alessio really soak up the moment. You can see how much it means to him. And we're in the presence of several former Cup champions here in Shanghai.
We certainly are, but we're also in the presence of a new Cup champion too. We can't discount that, and we may well see him very, very soon. So it was a great job, and we talk about the fact that we're used to getting to the final race of the year, the final corner, the final lap, to celebrate who the champion is for that season. But this one, we're 2 rounds short of the end of the year. And this year, it's a 10-round season. It's not a 12-round season as we have traditionally seen in the past. That shows you just how dominant and consistent Alessio Picariello has been. In fact, his worst result, 1 4th-place finish.
Yep.
Every other result, victory or a podium. And that's how you put a championship together.
And it's really been, I guess, based on last year, the learning curve, where he's gone away over the winter break and really sort of looked into himself and think, how can I get that much more out of a car? And he's dominated this championship.
Well, when we spoke to them earlier in the year, Martin Rump and Alessio Picariello, we asked them, what do you bring into the 2017 season? And the one thing they said was experience. We bring experience in this year. We know the circuits, we know the car, we know the teams, we know our rivals, and they've put that to good use. Well, certainly Alessio Picariello has. 3rd place, the outgoing AM champion, is that doesn't look like Jeffrey Lee. That may well be Lim Kyong Wee. That's who that is in position number 3, subbing for Marchie Lee, the 2012 Cup champion, the very first champion for the Audi R8 LMS Cup back 5 seasons ago. 2nd place to Burit Birambakti, who we expect, based on the calculations, we've been more caught up in the outright championship points, but we expect that Burit Birambakti will become the 2017 AM champion, and the winner this time round, Sun Jingzhu, for the Absolute Racing operation. The Chinese driver at home has taken his victory, so a good effort by him.
Now, Sean, just explain to the viewers back at home the differences between that AM Plus and AM class. Sometimes it can be a little bit difficult. Some races seem to be a little bit too quick for their division, and some of their competitors think that they should be bumped up a category. But how's that all sorted out?
Well, it's very much, in European competition, they use very much the bronze, silver and gold classification. A gold driver, of course, is a professional. A bronze is an amateur. The silver driver, certainly, you look at somebody like Jeffrey Lee, who when he started this championship in 2012 was an outright contender. He's a younger man then, as we all were, but he was capable of running at the front of the field. As he has got older and less racing, he has been able to then move back down the order a little bit. Had in the past been classified an AM driver, because he is the outgoing champion of the AM division, but AM Plus this year, so certainly a very good drive there. A little bit of noise here in the background of the lounge as the new champion for the Audi R8 LMS Cup wanders through, slapped on the back and given a hug by the 2013 Cup champion, Adley Fong, and lots of people giving their honours and gratitude to Alessio Picariello.
Well, good to see the amateurs and amateur plus drivers as well, also enjoying their moment. Alessio, as we said, just a few yards away from us, soaking up the applause here in the Audi lounge.
He is of course, the 2017 champion, but joining us, we have the 2013 Cup champion, of course, Adley Fong. And Adley, you're a teammate in the Absolute Racing operation. What's that mean down there in pit lane, certainly to Fab and to Ingo, to see what happened today?
Oh, everything. The Audi R8 LMS Cup is such a competitive championship, and with Alessio coming so close last year, I'm sure everyone will be over-delighted down in the pit lane.
Now, Adley, let me ask you, what will he be going through right now as this moment sinks in? And more importantly, what can this do for his career as it has done for yours?
It'll open a lot of doors. A lot of people actually keep an eye on the Audi R8 LMS Cup and see the development of young drivers. And definitely right now, he'll feel all the tension in his shoulders go away. You don't notice it during a championship, but tension builds up. You get more and more tense. But when it's all over, you finally relax, and it's like a huge sigh of relief.
What did you see from Alessio this year? I mean, in the past, we were talking about it earlier, that the championship went down to the final race. It might have been a 12-round championship, and there's a couple of points in it right at the tail end. In fact, you faced that going into Macau,
yes.
And it was Alex's slip-up that opened the door for you, and that's all you needed to take the title. He's won it with 2 rounds remaining. That's an impressive effort.
That is very impressive. Every race he's done, I've seen him improve, and he's really the cream of the crop. So Amazing drive, especially today. Amazing move on Dries van Toor to take the overall victory and the championship. So congratulations to Alessio.
Where does he have that edge as a driver? I mean, of course, the other youngsters, Sean Thong, Martin Rump, they're all trying to improve just as quickly as Alessio has done so. But he's pulled away so quickly, it seems, versus last year. Where does he really stand out on the track?
I think it's a combination of synergy between the team and working the car with the tires. Audi R8 LMS Cup has gone from a Michelin tire to a Pirelli tire, so that ultimately changes the whole playing field. And with a bit of experience from the US with Absolute Racing in another championship with the Pirelli tire, it gives them a bit of an advantage and starting point for the beginning of last year's championship. So ultimately, Alessio's been able to fine-tune his car, fine-tune his driving skill, learn tire management, and ultimately that's why he's champion.
We spoke to some of his rivals this year, and of course Mitch Gilbert gets a lot of the same data to be able to see where it might be a little bit different with Alessio. And he said, I can't pinpoint what it is. I look at this data and he's just got that something I can't factor what it is. I mean, have you seen it? What do you know about what Alessio can bring to the table that the other drivers struggle to match?
He can definitely put the icing on the cake, Alessio. He's got that extra bit of talent to be able to squeeze that little tenth out. And what's been really amazing watching Alessio drive is with the success ballast that he carries most of the time, he's been able to drive 50 kilos, 30 kilos, like it's not affecting him. So really impressive stuff there. He's really learned how to manage a car, maybe not the most optimum that day, but it's the consistency that wins you championships. And that's why he's achieved it 2 rounds before the end of this championship.
Now, just talk about the Absolute Racing team as well. Obviously, they were the service team, the original service team for the Cup, and they've dominated this year with not just Alessio, but his teammates as well. Just tell us about them a little bit.
Yeah, Absolute Racing started back in 2010. They ultimately started the Audi R8 LMS Cup with Audi China. And, you know, all the experience, especially in the first 3 years of running the Cup with running 20 cars, that was really what gave them the edge on how to run the Audi, how to run it efficiently, how to repair it in a case of a damage. And just cutting time short in everything you do gives you the advantage. And Absolute Racing is so efficient in that sense. And that's what's given them a great car for Alessio.
Thank you for that, Adley, and thanks for those insights too as a former champion, of course, in the Audi R8 LMS Cup. Well, let's take a look back at the highlights of round 8 of the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup, the race that set up the championship victory for Alessio Picariello. There he is on screen, deep breath before the start of the race, and he fired off this line and got to the front of the field very, very quickly. And what a race it was, Mark Dreyer.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this was a key moment. We just thought if perhaps Frankie Chung could get the edge here and stay in second place, stay ahead of Alessio, that could be the moment that can continue this championship into the final race weekend. But it was all about Alessio, not just on the start, but then, of course, this move coming up on his countrymen.
Well, you talk about whether or not Frankie Chung, who's also in the Absolute Racing stable, would make a move on his teammate. Well, really? Probably not likely. They're a smart team. We were just listening to Adley Fong explaining just how experienced the Absolute Racing operation is, and they may have taken this scenario into account before the start of this race to say, Frankie, well, here it is. The chances of you winning the championship are very, very slim. Perhaps you look after Alessio and just get the team through. Give us team victory, give us championship victory for the driver. And there was the move. It's starting to set things up with Dries van Toor at the front of this field. Of course, the young Belgian who won the 7th round of the Cup just yesterday, and this is where it all happened. Down at turn 1, forced Van Toor just a little bit narrower than he would like to have turned into turn 1, got into the dirty part of the circuit. That was enough to put him wide on the exit, opened the door for the 2 Absolute Racing drivers, and that gave Alessio the win. Then this big move on the exit of turn 13 for Sean Thong.
And it was the way he set that up with that sort of almost bullying move beforehand all over the back of Dries' car, and that certainly threw him off his game. And that allowed him to get through. And after that, he didn't look back as we looked through to some of the other competitors in this field.
Sadly, a retirement for Martin Rump, who has been one of the most successful young stars here at Shanghai International Circuit. That was the first victory here at Shanghai for Alessio Picariello. He has been here in the past. And for the 2 young drivers that came out of Formula Masters, it certainly had been Martin Rump's favourite circuit. This little bit of battle between Mitch Gilbert and Sean Thong opened the door to let the reigning champion Alex Young into this fight, and he moved his way further forward, got in the mix with the 2 drivers, took the inside move into turn 1, little bit of contact with his Phoenix Racing Asia teammate, but of caused a few anxious moments for team boss Marchie Lee down in the pit garages. Of course, he's not driving here this weekend, was running in China GT, looking for success in that championship. And then a little bit wide down at turn 6 for Alex Young, and Sean Thong was able to cross back through and take back that position. But at the front of the field, there was no denying the man with the 15 MGT team by Absolute Car. That was Alessio Picariello, 4th win for the year, super successful, and with it, the 2017 Audi R8 LMS Cup title.
Well, with that second place finish for Frankie, he moves into second place in the overall standings. It's still pretty tight between places 2, 3 and 4, but as he said, Alessio has wrapped up this championship. That's all from us, Sean. Thanks very much. More great stuff. We'll be back in Zhejiang.